Trial Tuesday once again today. We're discussing a very sad story out of James Island. Officials say that Roddy White's brother was shot and killed over the weekend. It happened outside of a nightclub. Attorney Daivd Aylor here to discuss what's next in this case. David, again, this was a very shocking case for a lot of people in the community. Everybody knows Roddy White. He made it big. He's with the Atlanta Falcons now as wide receiver. He still had a lot of family here at home. It turns out his brother was shot in the back.
Yeah, that's at least what the reports are saying right now. Obviously, they're preliminary at this point, but it does appear that that's what happened. What we do know is where he was shot, which is down at Mosquito Beach outside a club that they have right there. It's more of just a bar. At this point, they have not come out with any suspects.
Well, let's talk about this place a little bit. Has it been kind of I feel like I've responded to crime scenes there before in my reporting career. Is this something that happens repeatedly at this place?
Well, just in that area, Mosquito Beach, yes. There's a lot of, issues in that area related to whether it be this club specifically or some of the residents in the area. A lot of it's drug related and some robberies and things like that. So it can be dangerous, particularly late at night.
This, of course, is going to go high profile just because of the nature of the crime itself. It's Roddy White's brother, at least here in town. It's going to get a lot of media coverage. Does that kind of, I know you've done a lot of high profile cases yourself, does that kind of change the investigation? Do you think that, investigators and cops are working overtime because there's such a pressure to solve this one?
I don't know that they are. I think they may be getting more questions from people out in the media. More people like ourselves are talking about it. But at least with my experience, they handle each case the same. They're going to have certain people that are going to be on the case that are going to be assigned to it. Depending on the circumstances and maybe certain facts related, they may work overtime. But really that just functions within the investigation as a whole.
Of course, this was a nightclub. It was a bar serving alcohol at the time. That means that there had to be a lot of people there over the weekend. That means that there are a lot of potential witnesses. Unfortunately, it seems like we're having a lot of trouble getting those witnesses to talk. So where do police investigators go from here in terms of getting the evidence that they need?
Well, there's two problems that they often have. One is that they get conflicting statements because you have different people think they saw different things or maybe, tell different things to mislead the police depending. And then besides that, you also have individuals who just don't want to participate, don't want to work with the police at all. Sometimes that's because they'd rather have vengeance on their own. Other times they just don't want to have any contact with police. So it's a tough task when you have situations like this. However, you're right though, you would hope that there would be a lot of witnesses, so at least some people would help them sort of lead to the path of what actually happened.
Then, of course, there's ballistics evidence. Of course, Roddy White's brother was shot. That means that there are casings still in the area. Police probably recovered those already. So where do you go when you get that evidence? How do you track that down and connect that bullet to a gun?
Well, unfortunately, it's not as easy as it looks on CSI and
Right.
different shows like that. They may be able to track it to figuring out what type of gun it is, but the specific gun, and even if they could find the specific gun, sometimes that'll be found on the scene. Actually taking that and registering it back to someone is most difficult oftentimes. A lot of times the guns are stolen.
Of course, somebody's got to know who did this. It was a crowded nightclub, as I said. Where do police go? Do they start, trying to knock on doors, people in the area, start going down a list and interviewing people like that? You said it's going to be a lot of trouble, but obviously somebody was there and saw exactly what happened. So how do you kind of differentiate between that evidence and stories that you try and corroborate versus the person that actually did it?
Well, a lot of times you're going to look at the person who was shot and try to determine if there was any issues related to that person, and if so, were any of those people present at the club, or do they believe that they were there? Beyond that, you're also going to want to just see who was at the club, generally speaking. Was this something that was related to something personal? Was it a business-related matter? Was it a drug-related matter? Things like that. And then, all together, you're just going to keep knocking on doors until you can put something together.
What about security cameras as well? There's got to be some kind of cameras in this club, right?
Well, not always the case. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. No club has to have them. Sometimes your insurance policy will ask that you have them or require it. But generally speaking, I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't any.
All right, a lot more to come out in this case. Attorney Daivd Aylor, thank you so much for your time. We'll, of course, be watching it here on Lowcountry Live, and we'll have much more LCL after this.
Trial Tuesday, brought to you by Attorney Daivd Aylor.